And President Trump has absolutely been a leader on this effort, talking about the irregularities we've seen in our elections, holding Democrats accountable for allowing illegal immigrants to participate in our elections. And he actually signed a recent executive order to protect the integrity of our elections. It will strengthen voter citizenship verification laws. It also directs the Attorney General to enter information sharing agreements with state election officials to identify cases of election fraud. So that correspondence between the federal government and the Attorney General with state and local officials has never happened before. It will allow the federal government to more easily identify these cases of fraud and then prosecute those who violate our election laws. And it is, again, appalling that any politician, regardless of party, could be against ensuring only American citizens can vote in American elections. How could anyone ever be against ensuring Americans need to have proof of identification to participate in our elections? You see the Democrats falling over themselves, trying to say this is somehow voter suppression. Absolutely not. We are trying to ensure that every American citizen, their vote actually counts and is not being outweighed by fraudulent votes and fraudulent ballots that we know have been cast in previous elections. So the president's taking this very seriously. He signed an extremely strong executive order directing action from the AG and the Department of Homeland Security as well to clean up our elections. And we expect Congress to do more on this front as well.
Donald Trump is running the promises made, promises immediately broken administration, but largely MAGA doesn't care. They don't care that prices aren't lower. They don't care that the stock market is tanking. And they don't care that Donald Trump, who promised that he'd have a peace deal on the war in Ukraine before he was inaugurated, hasn't even come close. But the promise they do care about is the promise of the Epstein Files. It's something that Donald Trump said that he would release, something that he said he would declassify. And of course, that hasn't happened. And MAGA is upset. So much so that Carolyn Levitt was confronted about it and her reaction wasn't great. We're going to cover it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into Carolyn Levitt being confronted by a MAGA influencer, I first want a little context on why they're so upset.
Donald Trump, and take it with a grain of salt, has promised full transparency when it comes to most of the big conspiracy theories of the past 60 years, something he campaigned on in the lead up to the election. The issue led to an absolutely Hall of Fame interview clip.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there, because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
Yep, Epstein. Sure about that? Maybe not Epstein. I wonder why Donald Trump wouldn't want the Epstein Files being made public. I mean, here he is in 1992 dancing and leering at women with his buddy Jeffrey Epstein at Mar-a-Lago. In 2002, Donald Trump said Jeffrey Epstein is, and I quote him here, a terrific guy. It is even said he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. I wonder why Donald Trump wouldn't want the Epstein Files being made public. Thing is, many members of Trump's base do. The Republican House Oversight Committee sent multiple letters to Attorney General Pam Bondi demanding the Epstein Files be released. Bondi then went on an apology tour to Fox News, promising the documents would be released imminently. Today, the White House made a big show of handing a bunch of conservative influencers binders labeled the Epstein Files Phase 1. But the whole stunt was a bust.
What's interesting is we're all waiting for bombshells, we're all waiting for juicy stuff, and that's not what's in this binder. That's not what's in this binder at all.
It is the biggest disappointment, I think, that you'll find. I encourage you to do your own homework on this. It's mostly procedural jargon, Glenn, heavily redacted.
Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, the Florida Republican leading this charge, said of the binders, all caps, "This is not what we or the American people asked for, and a complete disappointment."
So MAGA is not happy. Now, Donald Trump has broken lots of promises, and considering how much Republicans talked about eggs on the campaign trail, it's a little weird they're not focused on prices skyrocketing and the economy collapsing, but instead focused on the Epstein Files. But you know what? You pick whatever you want to be mad about. Now, this question that was asked of Carolyn Levitt wasn't asked in the traditional briefing room, right? It wasn't asked by one of the regular members of the media. I was asked in her new media and creator briefing room, which is some of the craziest collection of weirdos and mega influencers you'll ever see. And just to show you that, before we get to the Epstein question, I want to start with one of the strangest ones we've seen so far.
Thank you for giving me the honor to be able to ask a question and provide some transparency for the American people. Speaking of, I wanted to reference the election integrity. A lot of people in America are questioning if there's any possibility that we could see further investigations for anyone that could have violated our election integrity rights. And more importantly, so is there any possibility for names such as Barack Hussein Obama, Hillary Rodham Clinton to ever just possibly get investigated for any of these, questions from the American people, for any of the wrongdoings they might have done?
Well, it's refreshing to actually hear a question on election integrity because the legacy media would never ask such a question. They're so out of touch with where the American people are on this issue. And Americans, you're absolutely right, want to have trust in our electoral system. Without free and fair elections, you cannot have a free and fair country.
And first of all, what an insane thing to ask if Donald Trump, the guy who exclusively on the campaign trail whined that he was being politically persecuted, is going after his political enemies, just shows the cognitive dissonance of MAGA. And secondly, the fact that this guy can't even pronounce the names correctly of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama just goes to show the type of characters that they're bringing into this press room. That's not what it is. These people are not press. They have no credentials. They have no credibility. They're just people who repeat the talking points of MAGA, except when they actually give Carolyn a little pushback, which we saw right here.
My question is about the Epstein Files. And a couple months ago, the DOJ released what they called Phase 1 of the Epstein Files, and they announced that a lot of those files, the remaining files, probably the bulk of the files, are actually in the New York field office. They requested that they be returned the day after, and some legacy media reports show that not only were those files returned to the DOJ, but that hundreds of FBI agents are going through them day after day and getting them ready for public release. Do you have any updates from the DOJ or the FBI on when those files are expected to be released, and also when we might start seeing some arrests of the client list?
Sure. I can assure you that the Attorney General and her team at the Department of Justice are working on this diligently. For a specific timeline, I'd have to check in with them, and we can certainly do that for you, Rogan, in the effort of transparency. But I will tell you, the Attorney General is a bulldog. She is someone you want on your team, and when she wants to get something done, she gets it done. I've seen her do it in various instances already in her time as Attorney General, and when she makes a promise, she keeps it. So I think I don't have a specific timeline on you for that, but I do know that they're working on it over there.
They are working on it. Well, how long did it take them to work on the JFK files? You released those? That didn't take too long. You released those right away. So what could they possibly be working on? Maybe Donald Trump's name is appearing so much that it's taken them a long time to cross it out. But what could they possibly be working on? And what does working mean? Working on what exactly, Carolyn? You can't tell us. You don't want to. Does it have anything to do with the many photos of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein together? Donald Trump publicly talking about their friendship, Epstein doing the same thing as well. It's this issue that drives me crazy more than most of the lies from MAGA, because they're still talking about it. If it had been a point that they brought up long ago and some images resurfaced and so they shut up, that would be different. But Marjorie Taylor Greene Daly is talking about Jeffrey Epstein. We see Republicans all the time say, we demand the truth. We need it. Why is Barack Obama covering it up? And it's like Barack Obama never met him. Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were close friends, and he talked about him and what was happening while he was in the White House the first time. So what are you even saying? And I I can't even wrap my mind around the cognitive dissonance that has to exist with these people for them to try to frame this somehow as a Democrat issue rather than one with Donald Trump's actual BFF. But MAGA is not focused on anything important ever, obviously, and John Ossouf was calling that out right here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ossoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for joining us and for your service. Just to make sure I understand some of the basics here. So, Director Radcliffe, you were a member of the Houthi PC small group signal chain, correct?
I was.
Yeah, and so were the Vice President, the Secretaries of State and Defense, the National Security Advisor, and Ms. Gabbard, correct?
I believe so. I don't have a list of who was invited to be on.
And so was National Political Reporter Jeffrey Goldberg, correct?
I don't know that.
Yes, you do.
I don't know Jeffrey Goldberg, and I've already testified. I don't know whether or how he was added.
Okay, well, he was a member of the signal chain, and the discussion included the Vice President's private opinion on the wisdom of proposed U.S. strikes in Yemen, correct?
I don't recall.
Vance, quote, I think we are making a mistake. I am not sure the president is aware of how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There is a strong argument for delaying this a month. You don't recall?
I don't, as you
don't recall seeing that?
Read that. I don't.
It included the private opinions of the Secretary of Defense on the timing of strikes in Yemen, correct?
I don't recall.
Director Radcliffe, surely you prepared for this hearing today. You are part of a group of principals, senior echelons of the U.S. government, in now a widely publicized breach of sensitive information. You don't recall whether the Vice President opined on the wisdom of the strikes? That's your testimony today under oath?
In that setting, I don't recall.
Here's what Secretary Hegseth said, quote, waiting a few weeks or months does not fundamentally change the calculus. Two immediate risks on waiting. One, this leaks and we look indecisive. Two, Israel takes an action first or Gaza ceasefire falls apart and we don't get to start this on our own terms. Your testimony is you don't recall the Secretary of Defense sending that message or reading it?
I recall there being an exchange. I don't recall the specifics as you're reading it.
Well, let's put it this way, Director Radcliffe, a discussion by senior U.S. officials on the timing and risks of a proposed military campaign and disagreements between the President and the Vice President about U.S. plans and intentions would be of obvious interest to foreign intelligence services, would it not?
Yes.
And they were discussing the timing of sending U.S. air crews into enemy airspace where they faced an air defense threat, correct?
I'm going to, Senator, defer to the other principles that you're referring to about what the meaning and the context of what they were
They're talking about
auditing.
the timing of U.S. airstrikes, correct?
Yes.
Yes, and therefore the timing of sending U.S. air crews into hostile airspace, correct?
Yes.
Carolyn Levitt is holding idiotic press briefings with people who have no credibility. And Republicans, on the other hand, in Congress are making sure that what? We can't fund research into infectious diseases. We can't make sure that folks aren't going bankrupt just because they get sick. What is the focus of this administration besides serving Donald Trump and putting on these ridiculous public displays? They're spending more money now on a military parade for Donald Trump's birthday than they are funding pediatric cancer research. What is efficient about that? Can we get the Doge guys to look into the military parade? Like, we come to a point where you don't even really know what to say. Again, it goes back to the Epstein thing to ask a question of Carolyn Levitt, like it is some Democrat who's preventing this from happening when it's really Republicans. And like every conceivable form, like protecting Donald Trump, I can't even. It drives me crazy. These people are insane. We got to call them out. We're doing so on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon.